The 1970s was a decade of wild experiments, and not all of them aged gracefully. We're about to look back at some legendary flops. Some were dangerous, some were just plain weird, but I guarantee you remember at least one of them. So if you enjoy a good story about a spectacular failure, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button now, because we're diving into 10 70s ideas that time wisely forgot. The polyester leisure suit. The leisure suit didn't fail because of poor sales. Oh no, it failed spectacularly in the court of good taste. For a few years in the mid-70s, this was the go-to outfit for the modern man. Made from 100% synthetic, unbreathable polyester, often in shades of mint green or baby blue. It was a symbol of laid-back sophistication, but its time in the sun was short. The shiny fabric, the wide lapels, and the flared pants quickly became a parody of themselves. It has since become the universal symbol for bad 70s fashion. It was a bold statement that said, "I'm here to party, and I'm completely immune to both wrinkles and breathable comfort." Earth shoes. The Earth shoe was the official footwear of the back-to-nature, health-conscious 70s counterculture. Designed with a unique negative heel, where the heel was actually lower than the toes. These shoes were meant to mimic walking barefoot in sand and improve your posture. And for a few years, they were a phenomenon. But their unconventional, clunky look made them difficult to adopt by the mainstream. As fashion shifted towards sleeker styles later in the decade, the clunky Earth shoe began to look dated. Its failure was its inability to evolve beyond its niche. They were the official footwear for people who wanted to look like they were walking uphill, even when they were standing still. Mood rings. For a brief, shining moment in the mid-70s, these things were everywhere. The failure of the mood ring was the failure of a fad and the failure of its very premise. It promised to do the impossible, read your innermost emotions. The ring held a liquid crystal that changed color with temperature, and a little chart told you if you were calm, passionate, or stressed. We all wanted to believe. The magic, of course, was just science. The ring was only reading your body temperature, which might change if you're anxious, but also if you just drank a cold glass of water. The fad burned incredibly bright and then vanished just as quickly. It was scientifically questionable, looked a bit silly, and its primary function was to tell you that you were, in fact, warm-blooded. The Ford Pinto. In the early 1970s, America needed a small, affordable car, and Ford delivered with the Pinto. It was an instant hit, but the Pinto harbored a dark secret. To save space and a few dollars per car, engineers placed the fuel tank in a vulnerable position behind the rear axle. This meant that in a rear-end collision, even at low speeds, the tank could be punctured, leading to catastrophic fires. The real failure wasn't just this dangerous flaw, but the scandal that followed. Leaked documents suggested that Ford knew about the risk, but calculated that paying potential lawsuits for injuries and deaths would be cheaper than spending the $11 per car to fix the problem. The scandal turned the Pinto from a popular car into a national punchline and a symbol of corporate negligence. It was the car that taught America a valuable lesson about the price of cutting corners. The AMC Pacer. Unlike the Pinto, the AMC Pacer wasn't a failure because it was dangerous. It flopped because it was just plain weird. When it was released in 1975, AMC advertised it as the first wide small car, and boy was it ever. With its massive curved glass windows and short, round body, it earned the nickname the Flying Fishbowl. The design was intended to feel futuristic and spacious, which it was. But from the outside, its quirky proportions were a love it or hate it affair. and most people chose the latter. It was a commercial disappointment because it was too strange to become mainstream. It proved that while it's good to think outside the box, designing a car that actually looks like the box it came in might be a step too far. Corfam synthetic leather. Sometimes, a flop comes from a giant corporation trying to sell the future, only to realize they forgot about basic human comfort. In the early 70s, the chemical powerhouse DuPont heavily marketed a miracle material called Corfam. It was a synthetic leather, advertised as being superior to the real thing. It was scuff-resistant, held a shine perfectly, and was easy to clean. So why did it fail? One simple reason: it didn't breathe at all. Wearing shoes made of Corfam was like encasing your feet in stylish, airtight plastic containers. They were notoriously hot, stiff, and uncomfortable. Consumers rejected it almost immediately. It was a rejection by the public, who chose the comfort of tradition over the promise of a sweaty, synthetic future. Watergate Salad. How can a salad be a flop? Well, when it's not really a salad. Watergate Salad is a cultural flop that became a beloved staple at potlucks across America. Its recipe is a bizarre time capsule. Combine pistachio-flavored instant pudding mix with canned pineapple, mini marshmallows, nuts, and a tub of Cool Whip. The result is a sweet, fluffy, lumpy, and alarmingly green concoction. Its failure is in its name and its very identity. Why is it called Watergate Salad? The name's origin is a mystery, but it rose to prominence during the Watergate political scandal, and the name just stuck. It was a bright green, lumpy dessert, full of nuts and questionable ingredients that left a strange taste in your mouth, a fitting tribute to its namesake. Mego action figures. And finally, this is a different kind of failure. This one is a tragedy. If you were a kid in the 1970s, Mego action figures weren't a flop. They were your entire world. With their world's greatest superheroes line, Mego was the absolute king of the toy aisle. So, how did the king end up a flop? This was a failure of vision. In 1976, a young filmmaker offered Mego the master toy license for his upcoming science fiction movie. The executives at Mego, believing that science fiction wouldn't last, turned the offer down. That movie was Star Wars. That single decision is now legendary as one of the worst blunders in corporate history. Kenner Toys accepted the license and sold hundreds of millions of Star Wars figures, becoming the new giant. Mego's sales collapsed almost overnight. The flop here isn't the superhero toys we loved. It's the heartbreaking story of a company that had the future in its hands and chose to let it go. Mego passing on Star Wars is the business equivalent of the Beatles saying, "No thanks, we don't think guitars are going to be a big thing." From cars that looked like fish bowls to salads named after political scandals, the 70s were never boring. What other epic flops from the decade do you remember? Let us know your story in the comments below. And as always, if this trip down a very bumpy memory lane made you chuckle, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe for more.